that problem. So number 1, did you get an A, B, C, D, or E? What up a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Right? I was thinking about making you answer like on feel formative, but I didn't. But there will be ones like that coming up next week, so be prepped. Okay, correct answer is D. Number 2. And again, if you guys need to see any of the work, awesome. I see lots of B's. Number 2 is B. So I'm going to do this. I go back to my Zoom meeting. So this will tell you what multiple choice problem it was as we go through and kind of give you a hint at the work. Good job. So number 3 is a L'Hopital's. It was B. And then the difficulty level, that's what the DL stands for. The difficulty level here is a 4. A 5. So like if indicating like if you get this question correct, you get like a 4 on the AP exam. So the difficulty level indicates like what category or grade level they think you would earn on the AP exam. Okay, number 4. What'd we get? What? This one is E. So this is a category 4 as well. So again, we're 4 questions in. If you're 4 for 4, you're pretty much getting a 4 on the AP exam. This one, you had to find f of 3, which was 9. Found the limit as x approached 3 from the left and the right to also be 9. So since the left and right hand limit equals 9, the function value equals 9, then the value of the function is continuous and therefore differentiable, because the left and right hand derivative slopes were also the same. Okay, 5 was C and 6 was C. Those are difficulty level 3s. Seven is B. So again, as we're going through these, if there is any question you want me to show you more work for, you totally missed, you don't know how, I will gladly do any question. You just have to tell me. Like right now, I'm giving you the answers. If there's something you want to go through, I will gladly go through it. Seven was B, as well as a L'Hopital's. Eight and 9, we have B and E. So 8 didn't come from an actual AP exam. It was kind of one that they made up. They made it a difficulty level 5. So number 8's been the hardest question we've looked at so far. I tend to think that the ones where you have to pick like is 1, 2, 3. Like I think those ones where you have to determine if they're true or false are always the most difficult. And they're also always on the calculator part, which blows my mind too, because a calculator really doesn't help you. Yes, let me grab an actual packet. because for this one I can't see the question. Put that back in. All right, number 9. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so number 9 says if the limit as x approaches a of f of x equals L. So the minute I see this, I'm thinking, okay, if the limit exists, then the left-hand limit equals the right-hand limit. The limit is equal to L, where L is a real number. Which of the following must be true? So A does not have to be true because just because a limit exists does not mean that it's differentiable because it could be a sharp curve or cusp. B, f of x is continuous at A. So the limit exists. It doesn't necessarily tell me that it's continuous because it doesn't mean that there's not a hole. So did you ask why B can't be true? You answered D. So that actually kind of directly goes with B because we don't know that f of A equals L. We know that the limit equals L. So I could have, let me draw on here for you. I could have this occurring. Is it in white? It is. I wonder you can't see what I'm drawing. Be kind. I'm drawing with my mouse, not the iPad right now. What?
There's like a line on the board, so like it had your A and then it had your
So this is why D could be false. All you're told is that the limit exists. You're not told that the value of A is L. So that f of A could equal anything. It could equal Q, R, S, whatever. That's why it's not D. Okay? Were you watching me draw? Like, I was using that. I totally lost the answer packet. Good. Okay. So jumping down to 10, 11, and it looks like you're also going to see 12. 10 is E, 11, E, and 12, B. Okay. 13, and again, I'll go over anything you have questions on. 13 is A. 13, you just had to factor. That was a difference of squares. 14 was a difficulty level 5. That's the one where I think, like, algebra really plays a bigger part. You have to be able to take the idea that differentiability implies continuity. So if you're told they're differentiable, then you know they have to equal each other because they have to be continuous. Therefore, 2 plus 2b had to equal 4a, knowing that x was equal to 2, as well as the derivatives having to equal each other. So their derivatives also equaled each other, which allowed you to solve for a and then plug in and solve for b. Okay, 15 was a and 16 was a. There's 17, 18, and 19. Okay. So what you can do now is take your score out of 19 and multiply it by 2.85. So take your score out of 19, multiply it by 2.85. So let's say you got 11. I would give you a 31. So roughly, if you were just looking at multiple choice, and earning your 50-some points. So you would take that, your score out of 19, multiply by 2.85, and then multiply that by 2. If you were just basing it on multiple choice, you wanted to get a number 66 and higher to get a 5. 54 and higher is a 4. And 41 and higher is a 3. So your goal out of those 19 questions, multiply it by 2.85 times 2, and you were looking to get a 41 or higher. And that would get you a 3, 4, or 5. Just a rough idea, a rough way of looking at it.
What was it?
4 range, sorry, I put it up high. Hold on. A 4 is getting a 54 and higher. All right, let's look at a free response question from that beginning packet. One last free response look at limits, and then we're going to move into derivatives and their applications. Okay, so let's look at question 20. So question 20 says, let f be a function divided by f of x equals the following. Show that f is continuous. So how do we show continuity? Well, to show continuity, we need to do a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is show that the function exists at that point. So we're going to find f of 0. So in this case, f of 0 would come from plugging into the top. So the sign of 0 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. So f of 0 exists. So that's part A. The next thing you have to do is show that the limit as x approaches 0 from the left. I'm just going to draw it. Equals the limit as x approaches 0 from the right. So the limit as x approaches 0 from the left would come from the top function again, which would mean it equals 1. And then you have to look at the limit as x approaches 0 from the right of f of x. So the limit as x approaches 0 from the right would come from the bottom function. So that would be plugging in 0 in here. So you get e to the 0. Well, anything to the 0 is 1. So the left-hand limit equals the right-hand limit, which equals the function value. Therefore, since the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x equals 1 equals f of 0, then the function is continuous. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I have a warm-up of derivative reviews for you. So I'm going to give you a handout, and it is a bunch of derivatives, and I want you to see as many derivatives that you know off the top of your head very quickly. So we're going to do the derivatives and their application reference page, and I just want to see how many you know how quickly. So we're doing this little page right here. We're just going to see how many you know how quick.
That scared me so bad.
I was almost dropped them. That's good. You're welcome. That's why we review. So, you're welcome. While you're filling those in, I'm going to pass out the other handouts I have for you. You're good. I'm just coming around papers. You keep working on it. No, it's for them. I'm sure they've seen it. Okay, maybe about 1 more minute. And let's see how we did. So again, the idea is that these are our most basic rules. They're the rules that we need to pretty much know in order to kind of like be able to do derivatives. So again, it's one of those things that's been a while since we did derivatives, like just solely derivatives. So I like to always start our review for the AP exam by going backwards and looking at derivatives. So let's go over that handout. I have a typed copy, but man, finding that right now. Alright, so let's start with the basic and the trigs. Definition of the derivative. Definition of the derivative says that the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x minus f of a all over x minus a, or the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So that was on yesterday's handout that I gave you. That sort of summarized everything. Then we have our trig derivatives. Make sure if it has a u that you put du, dx, or du. Dx can also be written as u prime. So make sure you have du, dx, or u prime. Okay, moving down a little further, because I think the top was the easy part. I think where we started to probably run into problems are as we get into like the natural logs, as we got into our inverse trigs. So Bethany made you guys an awesome little Quizlet. That has some of these rules on it. Use it. Study it. Make sure you have your basic derivatives memorized. It's going to get you the basic points on your exam. You need inverse trig. You don't need antiderivatives of trig. So, like, you don't have to be able to recognize the square root 1 minus u squared du dx as the inverse sign. But you do have to be able to take the inverse sign. Okay. So what I want to do is look at a kind of introductory unit review of units 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3, and 4 are all derivatives and their applications. So what I gave you was a handout that summarizes kind of units 2, 3, and 4. And then what I'm going to do now is pass out to you some free response from those units, and we're going to work on them together right now. So we're going to start with a warm-up and a graph of f prime. I can put out stapler too if you have to staple. The copy machine was out of staples. I never realized how much I have to like lift my finger when I pass out papers until this year when I have a mask on and I can't like lift my finger to pass out papers. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a more difficult feat. You're welcome. So go ahead and look at that warm-up where it says connecting off F prime, F double prime. You're welcome. I got everybody. And so the question is, on what intervals is f of x increasing? On what intervals is f of x concave up? On what intervals does f of x have a max? And what are the intervals with which it has a min? So, easiest thing to do is think about, okay, is the sign positive? Is it negative? So it goes back to that table I gave you back in the day where the idea was that if the original, so this is f prime, by the way. So we're talking about that little chart I used to give you where it was f, f prime, f double prime. And the middle part goes positive, negative, 0, increase, decrease, extrema. The positive, negative, 0 reflects here. The increase, decrease, extrema repeats here. And then you add concave up, concave down, point of inflection. So it says on what intervals is f of x increasing? Well, f of x is increasing when f prime of x is positive. So it is positive from negative infinity to a, from c to e, and from e to infinity. On what intervals is f of x concave down? F of x will be concave down when f prime is decreasing. So f prime is decreasing from negative infinity to b and from d to e. On what intervals will f of x have a max? Well, a max is an extrema. So an extrema occurs at a 0. So we have a 0 at A, C, and E. But then you have to take into account that the zeros have to have a sign change. So this would go positive, negative, positive, positive. So E is not going to represent an extrema because there is not a sign change. So on the original, that represents increase, decrease, increase, increase. So if we're looking for a max, we are looking for a graph to have a sign change from positive to negative on its derivative. So f of x has a rel max when f prime of x equals 0 and f prime of x goes from positive to negative, which occurs at x equals a. At what value does x have a point of inflection? A point of inflection is going to occur when the derivative has an extrema. So when does the derivative have an extrema? So an extrema on the derivative is going to occur at b, d, and e. So b, d, and e are potential points of inflection. A point of inflection will also occur if the derivative goes from increase to decrease or decrease to increase. So changes, changes, changes. Therefore, f of x has a POI at x equals b, d, and e because these are extremas of f of x. Everybody good with our reasonings, why, etc.? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so what I want to do is start with some free responses for you. This was from about 5 years ago. And it says that this is a calculator not allowed. And we have the figure of the graph of f prime. We are told that this is key, twice differentiable. So remember, differentiability implies continuity. Continuity doesn't imply differentiability. But we're told that it's twice differentiable, which means the second derivative can also be taken. We have a closed interval. We are told that f prime has horizontal tangents at -1, 1, and 3. That means my graph has horizontal tangents at -1, 1, and 3. That means that the slope of the derivative, so that means at f double prime of -1, it equals 0. F double prime of 1 is 0. And f double prime of 3 is 0.
Darian Salt, please come to the office. Darian Salt, please come to the office.
Okay. The areas of the region bounded by the x-axis of the graph of f prime on the interval -2 to 1 and 1 to 4 are 9 and 12, respectively. So that has an area of 9. This has an area of 12. So we got all of that information from that starting paragraph. Now let's read what part A wants me to do. Find all the x coordinates, so I don't have to find the y's, at which f has a rel max. So thinking back to what we just said, there's a relative max when the derivative is equal to 0 and goes from positive to negative. So if this is the graph of the derivative has a couple points where it equals 0. So it equals 0 at -2, 1, and 4. However, the only point that it equals 0 and goes from positive to negative is at -2. Because here it stays negative, so that's not an extrema. And here it goes negative to positive, so that would be a min. So you would say f has a rel max at x equals -2 because f prime of x changes from positive to negative at x equals -2. That is probably a 2-point question on the AP exam. So you could earn 2 points out of 9 for getting that. Letter B. On what interval is the graph of f both concave down and decreasing? So we're looking for concave down and decreasing. Concave down and decreasing. So concave down is going to occur when the derivative is decreasing. And then f is decreasing when the derivative is negative. So we're looking for a negatively decreasing function. So we're looking for when f is both negative and decreasing. So we want to go up to our graph, and we're looking for negative. So that tells me it's negative from -2 to 4, so it can't be this part. And now it has to be when it's decreasing. So it's decreasing from -2 to 1 and 1 to 3. Okay? Probably also a 2-point question on the AP exam. Because they're going to get you for your intervals, and then you're going to get you for the reason. The reason, I want you to notice, look, what did I say? I didn't say because the graph, I specifically label the functions. I say f prime x. I don't say because the graph is negative and decreasing. I say because f prime of x. And that's one of the things I remember on our mock exams. We were saying the graph or the function. Don't be general. Be specific. Okay. Part C, find the x-coordinates of all POIs. So again, a POI occurs when f prime of x has an extrema. Give a reason for your answer. So the graph of f will have a POI when f prime of x has an extrema or changes from increase to decrease or decrease to increase. This occurs at x equals, all right, so we go decrease, increase, -1, increase, decrease, +1, decrease, increase, 3. We could also say that the second derivative at those points is 0 because it was given to us. Okay. So let's take our 4-minute pause break. That was a lot of info. Go breathe. Come back at 9:24. Okay. So take a minute, read through 27. And then it asks you to find the second derivative. So go ahead and find the second derivative. And our magic reveal. So second derivative, you should have had x 1/2 because it's a square root inside. So it's a chain rule, f of x to the negative 1/2 times f prime of x, chain rule, plus the second, so product rule, times derivative of the first. And then what you did is you're finding f double prime of 3. So everywhere I had an x, I plugged in a 3. If I had an f of x, then I replaced it with 25 because that was given to me. And if I had f prime of 3, then I plugged 3 into the derivative that was given to me and got 15. Did I answer your question, Maddie? Okay. If you had 45/10, sometimes if you simplified that, 45 divided by 5 is 9. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So you could have had 9/2 plus 5. Now remember, if this is a free response question on the AP exam, that right there, that answer, that 9 plus 9/2 plus 5, that 45/10 plus 5, is acceptable. So you don't have to get a like denominator and add them together. You can, but you don't have to. So you're good to stop there. If you didn't stop there and you had 19/2, also fine. You changed 9/2 to 4.5 and you're at 9.5, also fine. This was a 3-point free response question, if I remember correctly. This was about 3 points. They did 2 points just for the chain rule. And then 1 point for your answer. All right. We're getting back into implicit. Consider the curve given. Show the derivative. Guys, they literally give you the right answer. All you have to do is get that answer. All you gotta do is get it. So first part is a product rule. So it's first, which is x. Derivative of the second is 2y dy dx. Plus the second, which is y squared, times 1. Minus the first, x cubed, derivative of the second, plus the second, derivative of the first. Now be careful. That negative, you can either keep it outside all of this and distribute it back, or you can tag it onto the x cubed, but then that means this needs to be negative in here. Equals 0. Get dy dx on the left, the other stuff on the right. Those were 2 points on the AP exam. Is that a nice review? We remember implicit. We're feeling good. Remember, please, if I'm too fast, you don't understand, ask, ask, ask. I love question B. The AP exam loves tangent lines. Find all points on that curve given above, so this is still part of 28. Find all points on that curve whose x coordinate is 1. Write an equation for the tangent line at that point, or multiple points. So the first thing I got to do is take the original function and plug in x equals 1 and solve for y. So it ends up being a quadratic. So I got y minus 3, y plus 2. So my y values are y equals 2, or y equals negative 2 and y equals 3. They gave you the slope. They gave you the slope. So for a tangent line, you need the slope of the derivative. They gave me the slope of the derivative. So what I'm going to do is plug in 1 for every x up there. And now what I need to do is I have two tangent lines. I have the tangent line where y minus a minus 2 and where I have y minus 3. I need the slope for each. Both times it's x minus 1. The slope is going to change depending on the y value because this is affected by y. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 and get a slope. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 minus negative 2 squared is 4 over 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4 minus 1. So I get negative 10 over negative 5. Well, negative 10 over negative 5 is positive 2. Then I'm going to plug in 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. Minus 9. Oh, I'm done. That's 0. Not even going to look at the bottom. So that tells me that this is a horizontal line, which is probably going to come into play in part C, but I haven't gotten that far yet. But we'll see. Okay? So I have two tangent line equations, y equals 3 and y equals all of that. Part C, find the x-coordinate of each point on the curve where the tangent line is vertical. So where does a vertical tangent line occur? What has to happen for a vertical tangent line? What's the slope of a vertical tangent line? Undefined. A horizontal tangent line has a slope of 0. A vertical tangent line has a slope undefined. So in this case, I want to know when dy dx would be undefined and when is a slope undefined. What has to occur? Good. So I need the denominator, which is 2xy minus x cubed, to equal 0. The x-coordinate at which the vertical tangent line would occur is when the denominator equals 0. So I want to know what x is. So what do I have to get rid of? Here. So how can I get rid of y? Well, we could factor out an x, right? So that leaves 2y minus x squared. So one of those is going to be when x equals 0. And the other point is going to be when x equals plus or minus the square root of 2y. So how could I go about trying to solve for that? Yeah, exactly. So we're going to take that and plug it back in to the original. Now, since I want to know the x values, instead of solving for x here, when I plug it back in, I want to solve for y so that my answer is in terms of x. So when I do my plugging in, I'm actually going to plug in for y's, so my answer is in terms of x. So x squared squared is x4 times x, so you get 1/2 x to the 5th. X squared x cubed. Oh, yes, thank you. Yep, you're right. Thank you. This one will be my 1/2 x to the 5th. Good catch. Equals 6. So you get 1/4 times 1/2, which is a negative 1/4. X to the 5th equals 6. Multiply both sides times negative 4. I get x equals, and again, it only asks for the x value, so you don't have to plug in and find the y, even though there would be y values. I think out of all the questions we've kind of looked at and talked about today, I think this one's probably the most difficult, just because it's so much outside the box thinking. Did we talk about the grass clipping question at all? You guys would remember better than me. I've done this question before. It's another question I really like. I just can't remember if we ever talked about it. This is a calculator question, and we haven't done one of those today, so let's take out our calculators. Okay, grass clippings are placed in a bin where they decompose from 0 to 30. The amount of grass clippings remaining in the bin is modeled by A of t. So I'm going to go to my graphing calculator. I'm going to type in A of t. Where A of t is measured in pounds and t is measured in days. So this isn't a rate of change, this is an original. It says find the average rate of change. Average rate of change is the slope. Find the average rate of change, aka the slope from 0 to 30 indicate units of measure. So that's like a of 30 minus a of 0 over 30 minus 0. So my units of measure, well, A, it told me is in pounds. T is in days. So my units of measure are pounds per day. Even if you don't know how to get this number, if you write down a random number, you can get your unit point. So even if you don't know how to get that. However, we do, because this is in my Y1, I can go to my table. Now, if you're in auto table mode, that's kind of a pain in the butt because it's going to take you forever to get to 30. So I would go to second, I would go to table set, and instead of being an auto, I'd be an ask. And I can go to my table and do 30 and do 0. And you get negative 0.1968. And again, that's pounds per day. Part B, find the value of A prime. Use correct units to interpret the value. So on this screen here, I'm going to hit math. I'm going to go to 8 dx, because you're integrating with respect to x. Bars, y bars, function y1. Type in 15. So A prime of 15. And again, it asks for you to interpret the meaning and correct units. So units here are going to be the same as units there. It's pounds per day. But now to interpret this, so we are saying A represents amount. The amount of grass clippings what are they doing? Are they increasing or decreasing? Well, it's negative. Therefore, they're decreasing. So the amount of grass clippings is decreasing. Now, the minute I write the word decreasing, I cannot include the negative in my description. So the amount of grass clippings is decreasing at this is a rate of 0.164 pounds per day at t equals 15 days. So looking at like the next couple of problems, do you want to do a graph? Do you want to do a table? Do you want to do a differentiable equation? Do you want to do a rate of change? Like there's a whole bunch of questions on there. Which ones do you want to do? What do we feel the least confident? A graph, a rate of change, or a differentiable equation? Anybody pick one. Or pick a number. Your choices are all the way to 37. Pick any number from 30 to 37. Thank you. Is that what you said too? That was actually the one I was on. All right, 33. Let's read and interpret. 33 is a good one. It's gross. Ship A is traveling due west. So now you got to know your north, south, east, and west. That's up here. So west is this way. So here's ship A. It's moving west toward a lighthouse at a speed of 15 kilometers per hour. So that's my dx dt. So I might just somewhere on my page write dx dt. And if it's moving toward the lighthouse, is its rate increasing or decreasing? Is it going to be positive or negative if it moves towards the lighthouse? It's decreasing the distance from a point. Negative. That's why this says speed, because it could give the answer as a positive. Ship B is traveling north. So ship B is moving away from the lighthouse. So dy dt is positive 10. Let x be the distance between A and the lighthouse at time t, and y be the distance between the ship and the lighthouse at time t. So there's your x, there's your y. Find the rate of change in kilometers per hour of the distance between the two ships when x is 4 and y is 3. So x is 4, y is 3. Okay, what's that make my z? Yep, thank you. Because it's a 3, 4, 5. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for dz dt. We want to know how quickly they're moving apart. So we're going to set up a Pythagorean theorem. So you have x squared plus y squared equals z squared. So 2x dx dt plus 2y dy dt equals 2z dz dt. So these are the questions where all the 2's could cancel. So you have negative 15 times 4 plus 10 times 3 equals 5 dz dt. So divide both sides by 5. And dz dt is equal to negative 45 plus 30 all over 5. So you get negative 15 over 5, or what? Yeah. Sorry. Four times 15 is 60. I was like staring at it going like, that doesn't look right. So I hesitated to give my answer. Units would be kilometers per hour. And then the last part's your trig. We haven't done trig for a while. Find the rate of change of theta. So here's theta. It's already given to you. It's in that diagram. They put it down here. So if you're given x and y, these two sides with respect to theta are opposite and adjacent. So the trig function we're using is tangent so tangent would equal y over x. If I want to find the rate of change, then I need to have the derivative of tan. So derivative of tan is secant squared theta d theta dt. And then over here, it's just a quotient rule. So it's ho d high minus high d ho all over ho ho. Secant squared is really just which other trig function flipped. Good, so that's like 1 over cosine squared theta. And cosine in this case, well, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which would be x over z. So secant squared would really be like z over x and squared. So z is 5, so it's 5 squared over x squared, which is 4. X is 4. dy dt is 10. Y is 3, dx dt is negative 15, and x squared is 4 squared. The reason I'm not actually multiplying or distributing anything is because I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of this stuff over here. And what happens is my 4 squareds are going to cancel. And then again, d theta would be radians, and time was hours. So my units would be radians per hours. Okay, so for homework I have the units 2, 3, and 4 multiple choice, so I can get a better idea of how we're doing. I'm going to have to go formative for the drop boxes for these, so you'll submit your answers on there, and then what I'm going to do is make it worth a half a point for turning it in and a half a point for correct answers. Now please, I know you guys like to share answers. Do this on your own. It is the best way to give yourself an idea of how you are doing. Like I said, it's very obvious to me when we share our answers, even on AP Classroom over spring break. You know, when we do 18 multiple choice questions in 8 minutes. It's kind of obvious. So I'm asking you to do these on your own to give yourself an idea of where you stand. Your AP test in here is in a week and like 4 days. So what I want you to do, again, I'm giving you a half a point just for doing it. And a half a point for getting it correct. So I'll pass those packets out to you in 1 minute. I'm getting them all stapled for you.